Hello. In this video, I wanted to talk about tech giants and their ecosystems. So, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering what a tech giant even is, and that basically refers to the companies that rule over the tech world right now. So, there are four major ones, also known as the Big Four, that people refer to when talking about this stuff, and that usually implies Google, also known as Alphabet. They have Google, YouTube, so on and so forth. You can just look it up. It's really strange for like a parent company. And then you have Amazon, Facebook, also known as Meta, and then also Apple. Those are like your major four competitors at the moment. However, some people talk about a fifth one, which would be Microsoft. The guys that make Windows, those people. These companies are responsible for making the major tech ecosystems on the market right now. So what that would be, for example, I fall under like the Apple one in particular, which is like your cell phone, your Apple Watch, your Apple speakers, your Apple headphones, your Apple earbuds, your Apple VR headset, all that. That's an ecosystem. An ecosystem is basically where you can live off of the entirety of one company's tech, whether that be through entertainment or absolute necessity. The majority of these companies are looking to entice you with like ease of use, right? So making sure that your phone connects to your computer, which connects to your tablet, which connects to your computer, all that stuff. Another good example would be, let's say Microsoft, for example. I don't know if they have a phone right now, but I do know they have a laptop, uh, tablet thing that they like to use. That thing could really jive well with your desktop computer. I'm sure you've noticed they both run under the exact same OS, so transferring files is extremely easy. There are other companies that do this too, such as Sony or Samsung, for example. However, what typically sets those companies apart is that they don't have an established, not even niche anymore. It's just like a thing of pure necessity that has already been pre-established, like the iPhone or Windows or like Facebook, for example. That's like a major outlier. I think they've made most of their money off of ads on Facebook for so long they didn't really need to innovate. These companies are set apart because they created a need for these things to keep people connected to everything, inner workings, to make sure you're always talking to each other with their product only. What's putting me a bit on edge with these companies is that they're creating products that are typically the same to their competitors. However, they're giving certain names to these products or features. Specifically, those features is the main issue here. And then they can create their own patent for these things for years and years. And so that you will have to be stuck with this one company for everything that you do, right? I Let's say here in the next 10 years, Apple invents a product that is so universally loved that you can't escape it, right? I don't know, let's say like a toaster that makes your entire breakfast for you, right? And because I happen to because I happen to have an iPhone and an iPad, uh, they are the first ones and only ones who have a thing that can cook breakfast for you completely automatically. I have to buy that thing now if I want to continue living easily, right? As an example. Hey, this is a future me in the editing process. I didn't really explain what I meant on why that would really be an issue for the whole like toaster analogy thing. The reason why that would be a huge issue is because when everything is connected in one ecosystem, there's no getting out of it. You can't just leave the ecosystem that easily. You've already invested so much time and effort into it that this one toaster thing invented by this one company is the only one that will be invented for the next 10, like however many years. So that was just me explaining what I said before, or explaining why it could be an issue. That was a pretty bad example on what I'm trying to get to here, but I think you get my point. Is that if you accidentally buy the wrong product in the future and then that company isn't thriving, you like let's say they just don't invent the next world changer, you're kind of screwed. You put all that money into this one product and then it's just going to fizzle out in the future. That was an example of like physical products that could change the world. Let's talk about something more of like the features that I was talking about. Let's say graphics cards, for example, right? Nvidia has had a stranglehold on the GPU market for a long, long time now. They are inventing just the craziest features so fast. They're able to they're able to make imaginary frames come out of nowhere, so that even somebody with not the greatest graphics card out there can play these highly competitive games on the newest version, like graphics version, and with not the greatest stuff. And that's just a game changer. I'm explaining that super poorly, but that's a sort of in the middle scale uh example of why this stuff really scares me, because pretty much everybody is forced to stick with Nvidia now, unless you want to try getting experimental with Intel and their Arc GPUs, which typically most people are not going to take that bait. They're not going to want to experiment because this thing is already working. Why would I want to change? And I'm not just scared because of losing competition in the work tech space. I'm more concerned that one day we are going to have a company that is so big and so expansive, so massive, they're just going to buy out or put all the other businesses just out of work completely. And I know in places like the US, we do have like a no monopoly in the marketplace rule, but with companies expanding so much, how there's no way you can really limit that. What if they just buy out everyone else and just basically put on a front saying, "Oh, this is another company run by Apple, run by Meta, run by Google," all like that, which could very easily happen. And I'm a little bit nervous about that because a lot of people could be put into a really tight spot where they've sunk so much money into this one ecosystem, and then when it fails, you you could just be you could just be out of luck, man. How like okay, for example, how companies will stop updating phones or console like gaming consoles after a while because they just don't want to put an effort to this old product that some of their customers still use. Maybe you rely on that thing because you just can't afford the next thing up. And then speaking of affording the next thing up, what if that one company decides to skyrocket the price of that one product? Like a few of those tech giants that I talked about earlier, where they just don't have a limiter for how much they can charge for these things. They just choose to put whatever price tag they want on it just because they know people will buy it because they have to. I don't want to be locked into one product. I like my Sonys and my Apples and my really weird niche headphone brands. I love that stuff. Seeing what weird new features that little companies come up with. And that's another thing, by the way. What if this one little company comes up with something and then another company just steals it before they can put a patent on it? And there's just nothing they can do about that. Or they could just buy out the patent if they wanted to. Like, hey, don't put a patent, or like, hey, don't put a patent on that. I want to do it. Let us buy your thing, and then you go into obscurity and have a bunch of money while we live happily ever after. That's just another thing that could happen. But yeah, that's all I really got to say about that. Um, Peace. Like for more.